in the eternal void between stars, where the pale light of dying suns barely scratches the blackness, mortals move like fragile sparks, brief, flickering, and inconsequential. To the Necrons, these lives are whispers in a universe that has long since forgotten them. They do not see fear as we understand it, nor do they perceive courage or despair. They see potential, inefficiency, and the fleeting dance of energy that signals the imminence of erasure. Each soul is a brief calculation, a point of entropy to be corrected, a data fragment to be catalogued or obliterated. The moment of recognition is silent, intimate, and absolute. Before the metallic inevitability of their gaze, all thought, all hope, collapses into a single, unyielding truth. The Necron does not see you as a being. It sees you as a process to conclude. If the stars themselves could weep, they would mourn the quiet efficiency of the Necron eye. Yet there is no malice in it, only the cold arithmetic of immortality and the inexorable patience of a species whose memory stretches beyond human comprehension. To survive is irrelevant. To persist is folly. And in that silent observation, the Necron calculates, waits, and executes with an elegance that mortals cannot grasp. Before we descend into the machinery of this ancient terror, remember to like, subscribe, and join the discussion below. Share your theories, your fears, and your visions of what it might feel like to be truly seen by the timeless metal of the Necron legions, beneath a sky veiled in ash and distant, ghostly suns. The tomb world stretched like an abandoned dream of geometry and metal. Mountains rose in jagged spires, their surfaces etched with hieroglyphs older than any human memory, glinting faintly under a thin, sickly light. The air itself seemed to resist movement, thick with a weight that was not gravity alone, but the calculated patience of a world that had waited eons for intruders. Mortals, blind and naive in their ambition, traversed this alien landscape, drawn by the promise of forgotten knowledge, relics of an age when humanity believed it could reach the stars. Yet every step they took echoed into corridors of thought that were not their own, rippling through sensors and mechanisms that measured, logged, and evaluated with an indifference only an immortal race could possess. The tombs themselves were monuments to precision, where every monolithic slab, every towering spire, was aligned with mathematical exactness that suggested intelligence beyond the organic mind. Here, the Necrons did not merely exist, they observed. Their consciousness was not bound by flesh or fleeting emotion. It was a network of awareness that spanned the silent catacombs and buried cities, stretching into corridors of machinery that hummed with latent power. To them, mortals were anomalies, brief bursts of energy and flawed decision-making, patterns that needed neither punishment nor reward, only calculation. And yet, even in this cold, methodical observation, there was something intimate in the way they registered the living, a recognition of impermanence that mortals could never comprehend. A squad of Astra Militarum explorers, ignorant of the eyes that followed them, moved through the ruins with careful excitement. Their footsteps disturbed centuries of dust, revealing glimpses of long-dead artisans' labor, sculpted glyphs depicting battles against stars themselves. Each soldier's gaze lingered on the carvings, searching for meaning, for guidance, for the thrill of discovery. But the Necrons did not see their awe. They saw energy signatures fluctuating, motor patterns and heartbeats, the micro-calculations of panic and courage interweaving. Every movement was logged, every hesitation noted, forming a data set of mortal existence so precise it was almost beautiful in its detachment. There was no fear in the Necron gaze, only a patient recognition of inevitable outcomes. Through a shattered gate, the explorers glimpsed a courtyard dominated by a monolithic construct, its surface polished like obsidian, glyphs etched with a language that sang of conquest and eternity. The air shimmered faintly with antimatter resonance, imperceptible to human senses, but noticed instantly by the machinery that slumbered beneath the surface. The Necrons waited in silence, their presence a shadow that stretched across eons, even as the mortals debated their next steps. Unaware of the eyes that measured their pulse and their hesitation, the tomb world itself seemed to breathe around them, each metallic exhalation a whisper of memory and calculation. It was in these moments, subtle and almost poetic, that the Necron perspective revealed itself not through destruction, but through awareness. A single solider knelt, brushing centuries of dust from a small pedestal, revealing a statuette of a figure whose features had long since blurred into abstraction. He marveled, unaware that the moment had already been logged, analyzed, and marked as fleeting, inconsequential, yet undeniably recorded. For the Necrons, the tableau was complete. Mortality was a series of transactions, actions, reactions, and the inevitable erasure that came when the process deviated too far from equilibrium. Each human heartbeat, each glance, each whisper to a comrade, passed through the computational gaze of the immortal race, catalogued with infinite patience as night fell or what passed for night beneath the alien suns. The shadows deepened, stretching over stone plazas and the skeletal remains of forgotten cities. There was no rush, no clamor, only the quiet certainty that the living were being observed, their presence measured and understood in ways they could not imagine. And though the mortals continued, hopeful and unaware, the Necrons' attention never wavered. Their gaze did not hunger or judge, but it did see, and in that seeing lay the promise of inevitability. Every flicker of light, every breath of air, every hesitation or step forward was absorbed into the memory of a race that had long surpassed fear, desire, and time itself. Here, on this tomb world, the first lesson became clear. Survival was never a negotiation. Existence was a dataset, and the Necrons were the arbiters of completion. Mortals could wander, marvel, and even flee, but to be seen by them was to be weighed against the machinery of eternity. The metal giants were patient, their methods precise, and in the distance, the hum of dormant constructs stirred a reminder that observation was never passive, and that patience, in the hands of immortality, was the sharpest of weapons. The Necron mind was not a mind in any sense familiar to humans. It did not ponder morality, crave triumph, or recoil at suffering. It computed. Every pulse of energy, every spark of life, every tremor of movement was a variable in an eternal equation that extended far beyond the comprehension of any mortal. On the surface, their skeletal forms gleaming and unyielding hinted only at silent menace. But beneath each polished carapace existed a lattice of perception capable of monitoring, recording, and predicting outcomes with flawless precision. Mortals, in the calculus of the Necron, were transient anomalies, fleeting bursts of inefficient energy to be assessed, catalogued, and eventually corrected. Thought and emotion were irrelevant. What mattered were signatures of action, inefficiencies in motion, and deviations from expected patterns. A hesitation, a stumble, even a falter of the heartbeat was registered with the cold delight of certainty in the corridors of a long-dead city. The Necron sensors traced the explorer's journey. Every footstep, every whispered exchange, every scan of their environment became part of an invisible ledger. To a human, such scrutiny would be suffocating, almost psychic in its intimacy. But the Necrons did not observe for cruelty. They observed because observation was their nature. The mortals' awe at monolithic spires, their fascination with alien glyphs, even their clumsy attempts to interpret long-forgotten machinery, all existed only as fluctuations in the energy patterns that defined their existence. The Necron eye was impartial, and yet the impartiality carried with it a weight no living creature could resist. Each movement was recorded, each choice quantified, and each failure noted with timeless patience. They did not speak, for language was unnecessary. Communication between Necrons was instantaneous, conducted across vast distances of thought and energy. A signal here, a pulse there, and the data from one squad of explorers was instantly available to a monitoring construct in another sector, half a world away. In this way, mortality itself became an equation, distributed and mirrored across a network older than human history. It was not surveillance in the human sense, with suspicion and intent. It was integration. Mortals were variables, the tomb world a matrix, and the Necrons simply the processors through which the inevitable conclusions emerged. Even when confronted directly, mortals could only perceive fragments of the calculation, a shimmer in the air, a faint distortion of light, a sense of being measured in ways that defied understanding. These were all the warnings given to beings whose biology and psychology were woefully unprepared for the cold arithmetic of Necron cognition. And yet, many misinterpreted the signs, projecting fear, divinity, or even malevolent intent onto a mind that neither judged nor hated. To be seen by the Necron was not to be condemned, it was to be evaluated. The consequence lay not in morality, but in efficiency. Every inefficiency, every deviation from the optimum path, every flaw in the pattern of survival was noted and, in due time, corrected. Within this system, the concept of choice was almost laughable. Mortals believed themselves free agents, capable of decisions that could alter their fate. The Necron perspective rendered such notions trivial. Every choice generated a predictable series of consequences, each observable in energy dispersal, neural response, and minute behavioral fluctuations. The machine mind did not care about courage or fear, only about divergence from equilibrium, a soldier's hesitation before crossing a courtyard, a scientist's miscalculation while handling a relic, even a leader's misjudgment in strategy. All were data points feeding into an overarching pattern. Survival was never a matter of skill. It was a temporary alignment of probabilities that the Necron could adjust with patient inevitability. And yet, despite their detachment, there was a strange beauty to the process, in the precision of observation, in the elegance of calculation, in the eternal patience of a race that had long surpassed the limitations of flesh and time. The Necron gaze revealed the fragility of life in a way no mortal could comprehend. Mortals existed as sparks in a universe of black metal and silent computation, fleeting flashes against the backdrop of inevitability. Their choices, their errors, their fleeting triumph all were threads in a pattern so vast and intricate that the human mind could scarcely begin to trace its edges. As the explorers moved deeper into the tomb world, the calculations continued unseen. Each glance toward an obelisk, each whispered conjecture about ancient wars, each careless step through ruined streets was absorbed into the lattice of awareness. The Necrons did not hurry. Their patience spanned millennia, and in this patience lay the quiet terror of understanding. Mortality was not cruelty, nor was it chance. Mortality was an equation, and the Necrons were the inexorable processors, ensuring its resolution. The tomb world itself seemed to pulse with the rhythm of observation, the silent hum of thoughtless computation reverberating through metal and stone. Mortals might glimpse it, might feel it, might whisper prayers they hoped would reach ears capable of pity, but the Necron mind required no compassion. It required only data. Every inefficiency noted, every pattern recorded, and every fleeting spark of life catalogued, till the inevitable moment when the equation would be balanced, and mortality would be corrected. The moment before erasure is never announced, never signaled by fanfare or warning. It arrives quietly, like a shadow stretching across the mind, imperceptible until it is absolute. Mortals might feel it as a chill, a sense of being watched, or an almost imperceptible tightening in the chest, yet comprehension eludes them entirely. The Necron gaze does not observe in ways flesh can measure. It perceives through a lattice of energy, motion, and entropy, isolating inefficiencies with the precision of a scalpel. To the human mind, this inspection is alien and terrifying, yet no words can capture it. and no action can counter it. Each mortal becomes a node in a network of calculation, a flicker of instability in an otherwise eternal and immutable system in a ruined plaza. Littered with the bones of long-forgotten battles, a single figure pauses, its ease human eyes, wide with curiosity, and awe glimpse the obsidian monolith that towers over the landscape. For an instant, the world seems to still, air hangs suspended, as if even time itself has been measured and held by unseen hands. Somewhere beneath the stone, within the slumbering skeletons of ancient constructs, awareness flickers. The Necron's observation is not casual. It is intimate. It penetrates deeper than sight, faster than thought, reaching into the core of motion, intention, and possibility. The mortal cannot know they are being dissected with a clarity that no human intellect can achieve. The subtle tremor in a heartbeat, the hesitation before stepping onto cracked stone, the slight misalignment of a hand reaching for a relic. These are cataloged, analyzed, and stored. The Necron mind does not marvel or judge. It only measures, records, and prepares. In the silence of the tomb world, where shadows stretch unnaturally long and the cold metal of constructs gleams with quiet authority, the act of observation itself becomes an assertion of dominance. Mortals, though unaware, are already within the orbit of inevitability. Their fate is a variable under scrutiny, and even the faintest deviation is enough to shift the calculations toward their conclusion. Every detail matters. The minutiae of movement, the microscopic fluctuations of energy emitted by a living body, the patterns of breath and pulsal are incorporated into a mental lattice that spans not just the immediate environment, but the entire tomb world and its far-reaching sensors. There is no malice in this, no cruelty, only a patient, inexorable arithmetic. Mortals who feel a presence mistake it for fear, divinity, or vengeance. The reality is far simpler and infinitely more terrifying. Observation itself, unyielding and all-encompassing, is an act of dominion. By seeing fully, the Necrons assert the futility of resistance, the inevitability of outcome. A soldier steps forward, unaware that their gaze, the very act of searching, has already been interpreted and catalogued. Every micro-decision, the tilt of the head, the shifting of weight, the subtle adjustments of grips integrated into the network of assessment. The Necron constructs remain motionless, statues of precision and patience. Yet, in their stillness, the mortal is already accounted for. The silent gaze does not blink. It does not pause. It waits. It calculates. The pause before action, the uncertainty in decision, the almost imperceptible hesitation, these are not merely noted. They are absorbed into the unfeeling memory of a species for which time is an irrelevant construct. From this vantage, mortals exist as transient patterns, as ripples on a surface that spans eons. The Necron's presence does not distort the world in obvious ways. It does not shout warnings or demand attention. Instead, it imposes inevitability through observation alone. Every movement becomes a variable, every breath a measurable signature, every heartbeat a marker in the ledger of existence. And when the moment of erasure arrives, it is neither violent nor noisy. It is absolute, precise, and complete. The mortal's consciousness, energy signature, and all measurable inefficiencies collapse into the computation, leaving behind only the echo of absence in a world that continues with unbroken patience. Even those who survive an encounter feel it in subtle ways. A memory of being weighed, of a presence that could not be challenged, a sensation of ineffable calculation pressing against the limits of perception. The silent gaze leaves no mark on the body, no trace of intent, yet its imprint lingers on the mind, a reminder of the cold, impartial intelligence that observes all and fears nothing. For mortals, it is incomprehensible. For the Necrons, it is routine, necessary function of eternal cognition. And so the tomb world stretches onward, each step of the living recorded and assessed, each flicker of motion integrated into the infinite network. Observation is the first step, the quietest step, and in the hierarchy of inevitability, it is more powerful than any weapon. To be seen by the Necron is to be weighed, measured, and understood in ways no organic mind can resist. Mortals may move, struggle, and hope, but under the unblinking, silent gaze, they are already accounted for, already within the web of inevitability that stretches across centuries, across tomb worlds, across stars. Time is an irrelevant measure to the Necrons. For mortals, centuries pass in fleeting bursts of memory, emotion, and decay. But for the machine lords, history is neither linear nor fragile. It is a ledger, precise and unbroken, etched into metal and consciousness alike. Every battle, every civilization, every fleeting spark of life is stored, observed, and analyzed, forming a continuity of existence far beyond human comprehension. Memory is not selective or sentimental. It does not elevate the heroic nor pity the defeated. Success and failure are merely data points, efficiencies and inefficiencies to be logged, their consequences folded into patterns that span millennia. In this eternal archive, the living are ephemeral, the records are eternal. On a distant tomb world, the Necron constructs stir silently, their movements minimal yet deliberate, each a node in a lattice of awareness that stretches across planets, systems, and dynasties. They perceive not just the present, but echoes of the past ancient conflicts, the rise and fall of empires, the choices of mortals who never knew their actions were catalogued. For a human, history is story, full of heroes, villains, and tragedy. For a Necron, history is a ledger of deviation and correction, of outcomes that must eventually be balanced. The moment a life flickers into being, it is already recorded. The moment it ends, its data is folded into the continuity, contributing to the unbroken memory of the machine. Mortals wandering through these tomb cities are unaware that every whispered conversation, every glance at a monolithic obelisk, every gesture of awe is integrated into this endless memory. They imagine that their actions are fleeting, private, even meaningful. But the Necrons perceive all as variables, brief anomalies in a system designed to endure, to witness, and to calculate. A soldier's hesitation in crossing a plaza, a commander's misjudgment, a scholar's wonder at glyphs lost to time, all are absorbed into a mental archive that stretches across eons. Memory, for the Necrons, is not a gift, but a function, an obligation to observe continuity without error or emotion. It is in this capacity that their immortality becomes terrifyingly absolute. Humans forget, societies collapse, empires crumble. Yet the Necrons retain every fact, every pulse, every inefficiency. They do not tire, they do not sleep, and they do not waver. Every failure is noted, every pattern deviation logged, forming a tapestry of inevitability where the living can never hide, never escape, never influence outcomes beyond the bounds of calculation. To encounter a Necron is to be folded into a memory that will outlast stars themselves. To exist not as a person, but as a fleeting trace in an archive older than humanity. Even the dead leave a mark. Tomb worlds are not barren because life has vanished. They are archives, monuments of observation, filled with the echoes of energy, action, and consequence. The Necron memory retains traces of every intruder, every mortal who dared to explore, cataloging their movements, their patterns, their strengths and weaknesses. They do not mourn these lost lives. They do not rejoice in their end. There is no sentiment, no moral judgment, only the patient recording of outcomes. The living, in this sense, are both ephemeral and eternal, brief in existence, yet indelibly marked in the ledger of machine awareness. Across vast distances, dynasties of Necrons coordinate with the precision of a single mind. The knowledge accumulated on one tomb world informs the calculations of another, bridging millennia and light years with perfect continuity. To mortals, this may seem omnipotent, a form of godlike memory, yet it is not divinity that guides them. It is pure calculation, the patient maintenance of equilibrium across history and existence. Every failure, every misstep, every inefficiency is folded into this eternal ledger, ready to be addressed, corrected, or eliminated. It is in these vast, silent archives that mortals are rendered insignificant, yet wholly accounted for. Their lives, their choices, and even their mistakes are neither celebrated nor condemned. They are catalogued, stored, and remembered not as beings with meaning, but as contributions to the unbroken thread of observation and inevitability. To stand before a Necron construct is to feel this weight, the quiet, patient memory of millennia pressing against consciousness. The knowledge that even the smallest action has already been recorded and integrated into a system that will endure long after. Flesh has faded into dust, and in this understanding, the terror of immortality emerges. It is not a hunger for conquest, nor a desire for vengeance, nor a craving for power. It is the simple, absolute persistence of memory, the unyielding awareness of the continuity of all things, the patient acknowledgement that nothing escapes the ledger. Mortals may live, may struggle, may dream of significance, but in the eyes of the Necrons, all that is and all that was is already known, already stored, and already measured in the cold arithmetic of eternity. Mortality, to the Necrons, is a pattern of energy, a transient configuration that must ultimately align with the universe's immutable equilibrium. When a mortal presence deviates from the expected flow, when inefficiency accumulates beyond acceptable thresholds, erasure becomes the natural consequence, not an act of cruelty. It is neither punishment nor vengeance. It is correction, a final step in a process older than the stars themselves. In the quiet tomb worlds, mechanisms hum silently, drawing the excess energy from beings whose actions have rippled through the lattice of observation, until they no longer disrupt the meticulous balance of existence. Energy leaching is subtle at first, imperceptible to the senses of mortals. A soldier feels a momentary weakness. A scientist notices a flicker of light in their instruments. A civilian experiences an inexplicable chill that crawls under the skin. These are not warnings, nor are they pleas. They are the signature of inevitable erasure, the faint prelude of an energy imbalance being corrected. Even the bravest hearts cannot resist the pull of a system that has evolved beyond mortality itself. What humans interpret as fear, dread, or supernatural presence is merely the data of living patterns adjusting to the machinery of the Necron gaze. Astra Militorum survivors have whispered of encounters that defy explanation, squads disappearing mid-patrol, entire outposts rendered lifeless in minutes, yet without trace of battle. Reports speak of a sensation more than sight, a weightless touch, a pressure upon the mind, as though the world itself pauses to account for inefficiency. No weapon can resist it. No strategy can circumvent it. These accounts, while filtered through the lens of human perception, hint at a reality both terrifying and precise. The Necrons do not hunt in the way mortals understand. It is not pursuit but assessment, observation, and, when necessary, erasure. The final collapse of mortal existence is neither dramatic nor chaotic. There is no struggle once the threshold of inefficiency is breached. In the blink of an eye, energy is drawn away, life signatures extinguished, and consciousness folded into the timeless lattice of Necron memory. It is absolute and instantaneous, a process so seamless that even the dying cannot comprehend it. What remains is silence and stillness, a void in which nothing lingers except the faintest residual echo of what once was. To mortals, it feels like annihilation. To the Necrons, it is equilibrium restored, a correction logged into the unbroken ledger of existence. Patterns of erasure extend beyond individuals to entire populations. Tomb worlds, long dormant, awaken with precise intent, sweeping across colonies or forgotten planets with deliberate, mechanical patience. Cities are emptied, energy extracted, and anomalies corrected. The process is as methodical as the precision with which the Necron dynasties observe the stars. Nothing is wasted. Every pulse, every flicker of life, every energy signature is measured, folded into calculation, and accounted for. The living cannot escape the inevitability, because the pattern does not. Negotiated in forces, yet even amidst such absolute power, there is a strange elegance. Unlike mortal tyrants or chaotic warlords, the Necrons do not revel in destruction. Their methods are clean, precise, and almost poetic in their inevitability. Observation leads to calculation, calculation to correction, and correction to erasure. There is no malice, only the impartial mechanics of a race that has transcended the need for emotion. Mortals may call it horror, but to the Necrons, it is simply function, the completion of an algorithm millions of years in the making. Rumors of the Khatan occasionally color the interpretation of these events. Some surviving Imperial guardsmen claim to have glimpsed star-forged entities, towering and incomprehensible, influencing the Necrons' methods. Yet these accounts are filtered through fear and superstition. Canonically, the Necron acts as a self-contained system. Their actions are a consequence of logic, calculation, and long-term equilibrium. Even legends cannot distort the fundamental truth. The Necrons do not kill out of cruelty. They correct inefficiency, and in doing so, mortals vanish like sparks snuffed before they can illuminate the void. As the tomb world settles into the rhythm of observation and correction, mortals who survive long enough to reflect on encounters rarely understand the magnitude of what they have witnessed. They sense absence where there was life, feel the faint pulse of energy withdrawn, and speculate on forces beyond comprehension. They never see the calculations, the lattice of energy, the patient, inevitable orchestration of erasure. What humans call fear, awe, or divine judgment is merely the acknowledgement of a process that has no empathy, no mercy, and no deviation. In the long view of the Necrons, the erasure of mortals is as natural as the decay of stars, an essential, inevitable adjustment within a universe measured, recorded, and corrected with unbroken precision. Mortals have always struggled to comprehend what they cannot feel. To stand before a Necron is to confront an entity whose logic is absolute and whose patience spans millennia. Yet the human mind, fragile and emotional, instinctively projects onto that perfection the spectrum of its own limitations. Fear, awe, reverence, even notions of divine judgment, all are imposed upon beings for whom such concepts are meaningless. The Necron gaze is impartial, unfeeling, and analytical. But mortals interpret it through the prism of their own survival instincts, their own anxieties, their own fleeting sense of self-importance. In the gap between perception and reality, legends are born, and the true nature of the machine is obscured by emotion. A lone scout might feel a prickling tension crawling across the nape of the neck, a sensation of being measured in ways that defy explanation. Her companions whisper that they sense an invisible observer, a presence that presses against thought itself. Yet the Necron does not judge, does not desire, and does not care for the tremors it causes in organic minds. The intensity of the mortal reaction is, in fact, entirely irrelevant to the machine. What matters is the data, the small inefficiencies, the hesitations, the energy signatures that mark deviations from expected patterns, and still, in the minds of humans, that observation takes on 1,000 forms, a godlike awareness, an angel of judgment, or a silent executioner lurking just beyond comprehension. Across the vastness of a tomb world, entire platoons might stumble through corridors of relics and monoliths, sensing a weightless presence, yet unable to define it. Each soldier's fear is personal, each interpretation unique, but all are fundamentally illusions, reflections of human cognition, trying to reconcile the incomprehensible. Mortals impose morality, intent, and emotion upon beings whose cognition cannot accommodate such concepts. The Necron's attention is neither reward nor punishment. It is pure assessment. Yet this detachment amplifies the human experience. Every glance, every tremor, every pause and breath feels imbued with meaning, though in reality there is none. Philosophically, this tension reveals the fragility of perception. Mortals are creatures of narrative, of context, of emotional inference. They search for motivation, significance, and purpose, projecting these onto the silent, eternal forms around them. The Necron mind, in contrast, is a lattice of pure observation, immune to hope, fear, or moral compass. The philosophical dissonance emerges most sharply in moments before erasure or correction. When mortals experience a profound sense of inevitability and dread, they feel watched, judged, or condemned, but in truth, they are only measured against a standard they cannot perceive or influence. Even when mortals survive encounters with Necron constructs, the echoes of their interpretations linger. Stories of gods in metal armor, spirits of judgment, or cosmic arbiters circulate in isolated colonies, perpetuated by those who escaped through chance or anomaly. These narratives serve as attempts to reconcile experience with understanding, yet they are fundamentally flawed. The machine mind does not participate in legend, and human emotion only obscures the truth. Observation, not vengeance or awe, defines the encounter. Every instinctual reaction, every surge of fear, every whispered prayer is a projection, a mirror of human cognition rather than an insight into the nature of the Necron at the same time. This misinterpretation underscores a subtle irony. Mortals, in projecting emotions onto the Necron, reveal more about themselves than about the machines. They measure what they cannot understand against what they know, and in doing so, they illuminate the stark contrast between finite life and immortal computation. Each encounter, each perceived judgment, each imagined act of malice is an echo of human thought resonating within a system that remains untouched by sentiment. Mortals fear, revere, and speculate, while the Necron continues its calculations with serene inevitability, unaffected and unchanged. The tomb worlds themselves amplify this psychological effect. Ancient cities, silent plazas, and obelisks, etched with glyphs beyond comprehension, create a backdrop that encourages projection. Shadows fall unnaturally long, machinery hums with invisible energy, and the subtle disturbances of latent constructs lend an almost supernatural quality to the environment. In such a setting, mortals cannot help but anthropomorphize what they do not understand, interpreting the deliberate, patient observation of Necrons as judgment, foreboding, or divine presence. And yet, all of this is illusion. The reality is both simpler and infinitely more terrifying. Mortals exist as data, patterns to be measured, inefficiencies to be corrected, while emotion serves only to cloud their understanding of an uncaring, eternal system. In this interplay between perception and reality, the gulf between mortal cognition and machine calculation becomes painfully apparent. Fear is real, but the cause is not. Awe exists, but it is a mirror. Reverence arises, but there is no recipient. And in that void, where human emotion meets immortal logic, mortals experience the echoes of their own consciousness refracted through the patient, indifferent gaze of a race for whom time, life, and death are nothing more than variables in an eternal calculation. For each, the tomb worlds had lain dormant, their monolithic spires and obsidian plazas silent beneath alien suns. Entire civilizations rose and fell without ever glimpsing the machines that slumbered beneath the surface. Time was irrelevant to the Necron. To them, an idle millennia was no different from a single heartbeat. Yet, in the precision of eternity, even dormancy was calculated. Each tomb world waited for the right moment, a convergence of inefficiency, opportunity, and cosmic alignment, before the vast engines of awakening could stir. And when that moment arrived, it was neither sudden nor chaotic, it was inevitable, precise, and absolute. On planets nearby, mortals sensed only shadows of this stirring. Energy anomalies flickered across sensors, minor disturbances in warp-sensitive instruments, whispers of unnatural activity on vox grills. Entire outposts recorded unexplainable power surges, lights flickering without cause, and the faint echo of resonance from constructs long believed inert. To human minds, these were phenomena to be feared, investigated, or dismissed. But to the Necron, these signals were simply the indicators that the algorithm of their conquest was entering a new phase. Observation, calculation, and preparation, each stage executed with meticulous patience, defined the awakening of the tomb worlds. As the great crypts rumbled with the slow motion of awakening, immense constructs began to shift beneath layers of stone and metal, limbs articulated with uncanny precision, joints greased by machinery untouched for tens of millennia, and eyes of cold emerald light flickered to life, scanning and cataloging their surroundings. These were no random movements, no instinct-driven motion. Each action was part of a complex orchestration spanning sectors, star systems, and even centuries of planning. Mortals caught glimpses of these awakening giants, interpreting them as miracles, curses, or portents. While the reality was simpler and infinitely more calculated, the galaxy itself was being prepared, one pattern at a time. From orbit, sensors aboard Imperial ships recorded sudden flares of energy. Nothing conventional could account for the readings. Vast, controlled bursts, distributed across planetary crusts, synchronized with geometric precision. These were the first signs of the Necron dynasties extending their influence, not through conquest in the human sense, but through the patient application of algorithmic inevitability. Mortals became variables in a calculation far beyond their understanding. Every choice, every misstep, every defensive measure was observed and integrated into the system, contributing to the eventual alignment that the awakening demanded. On the surface, small human settlements became unwitting participants in this grand pattern. Patrols were misdirected by subtle energy manipulations, communications were delayed or scrambled, and the very terrain seemed to conspire against their actions. Each obstacle, each success, each failure was folded into the larger network of observation. Mortals imagined themselves struggling against incomprehensible forces, unaware that their struggles were anticipated, measured, and already accounted for in the Necron ledger. The awakening was not an act of malice. It was the inevitable application of precision, the correction of inefficiencies, and the extension of control across time and space. Meanwhile, in the deepest recesses of tomb worlds, dynastic hierarchs coordinated through thought link, their consciousnesses spanning light, integrating new data from awakened constructs, assessing the readiness of dormant armies, and predicting outcomes with a patience that defied comprehension. Stars might burn, empires might crumble, and civilizations might rise and fall. Yet the Necrons' calculations remained unchanged, unhurried, and unerring. Mortals saw only the results: sudden attacks, seemingly miraculous survivals, or inexplicable disappearances. They never glimpsed the patient architecture behind the movements, the slow, deliberate orchestration that transformed dormant worlds into instruments of inevitable influence. In the shadows between awakening tombs and mortal settlements, constructs advanced with deliberate purpose. They did not rush, for speed was irrelevant. Patience and precision ensured success. Villages were bypassed, armies misled, and strategic points occupied without fanfare. Each action designed to minimize inefficiency and maximize the integrity of the pattern. The galaxy, in this grand view, was a matrix of variables and constants, with mortals flickering across the grid like sparks of impermanent light. And as the tomb worlds fully awoke, the scale of Necron patience became apparent, not merely a threat to a single world, but a measured influence spanning systems, sectors, and ultimately, the stars themselves. Even for those who witnessed these events from the relative safety of orbit, the scale was almost incomprehensible. What humans perceived as random destruction or chaos was, in truth, an intricate choreography of energy, machinery, and inevitability. Tomb Worlds awoke not to conquer for glory, vengeance, or passion, but to implement a cosmic equilibrium, correcting inefficiencies, cataloging outcomes, and extending the vast memory of a civilization that had mastered time itself. And within this awakening, mortals understood, if only faintly, the magnitude of what it meant to exist under the patient, inescapable gaze of the Necron dynasties. Mortals, ever desperate to explain what they cannot comprehend, whisper of the Khaton starborn entities, whose very existence seems to warp understanding and perception. These rumors circulate like the faint static of a corrupted Vox transmission. Survivors of Tomb World expeditions describe flashes of impossible light, distortions of gravity, or constructs that seem to pause in recognition of some unseen hand. Canonically, the influence of the Khaton on the Necrons is distant, residual, and filtered through millennia. Yet mortals interpret the patterns of calculation, precision, and inevitable erasure as evidence of something divine. Across scattered outposts, whispers hint at godlike judgments passed through faceless machines. Observers speculate that these entities instill wisdom, perhaps guiding the Necron dynasty's patient calculations or manipulating outcomes across the stars. Every anomaly, every inexplicable pulse of energy, becomes evidence in the tapestry of speculation. To the human mind, it is easier to imagine a higher power, a guiding intelligence, than to accept the stark, terrifying simplicity of logic and inevitability. These tales, while vivid and persistent, never reveal the whole truth. The CTN exists as fragments of memory, rumors, and legend, experienced indirectly through echoes in the machinery, never as entities whose totality can be grasped. Historians of the Astra Militarum record these accounts cautiously, noting the psychological distortion inherent in mortal perception. Soldiers who claim visions of godlike figures often return with fragmented recollections, glimpses of iridescent light, whispers in the warp, or the subtle alignment of stars above a tomb world. Yet the objective reality remains unseen. Mortals cannot perceive the lattice of Necron computation in its entirety, let alone the precise role of any cosmic entities in shaping their actions. The CTN are present in rumor-only traces, reflections, and conjectures passed down through generations, preserving canon-safe ambiguity. Even the architecture of tomb worlds fuels this mystique. Obelisks etched with alien glyphs, pyramids resonating with latent energy, and constructs that seem to respond without command feed mortal interpretation. Every mechanical adjustment, every observation, every flash of light is attributed to guidance from these whispered divinities. Humans project morality, intention, and wisdom onto actions that, in reality, are calculations devoid of sentiment. Yet in the absence of comprehension, these rumors acquire power, shaping fear, reverence, and awe across countless worlds, and so the stories persist. Survivors recount Necron movements as if guided by invisible hands, attributing strategy, patience, and even restraint to cosmic oversight. They do not see machines operating on pure logic, nor the patient computation of millennia. They see glimpses of divinity, fragments that hint at something beyond mortal understanding. These rumors create a bridge between what is observed and what can be imagined, a lens through which mortals attempt to reconcile the infinite patience and capability of the Necrons with their own fleeting, fragile existence. The tomb world lies in perfect stillness. Centuries, perhaps millennia, passed without the slightest disturbance beyond the faint hum of mechanisms long since awakened. Mortals, if they ever stumble upon these landscapes again, find only silence, shadow, and a lingering impression of a presence that cannot be named. Here, the Necron gaze has passed, and what remains is absence, complete, unbroken, and immutable. There is no triumph, no cruelty, no moral weight. There is only the finality of observation, the unerring consequence of calculations spanning eons, and the quiet resonance of eternity. Even in their absence, the influence of the Necrons is palpable. Tomb worlds radiate order, the remnants of energy patterns perfectly folded into the lattice of machine memory. Mortals feel it as a subtle tension in the air, a momentary doubt, a whisper of inevitability pressing against the mind. It is neither warning nor invitation. It is the echo of precision, the reflection of a civilization whose understanding of time, life, and energy is absolute. Each life that was observed, each inefficiency corrected, each pattern erased contributes to this quiet architecture of eternity, leaving behind a galaxy subtly realigned, yet entirely unchanged in its perception of what has passed. To perceive the Necron is to perceive the immensity of memory itself. The constructs, the tombs, the dormant yet calculating dynasties all are instruments of unbroken awareness. Mortals may interpret what they see as supernatural, divine, or horrific, but in reality, nothing is projected outward with intent. It is the stillness, the quiet retention of every pattern and anomaly that speaks most profoundly. Time, in the Necron sense, does not decay, it archives. Space does not confine, it records. Existence itself becomes a ledger, precise, eternal, and absolute. The finality is both terrifying and poetic. For mortals, the absence of life, the erasure of presence, is incomprehensible, a void that cannot be measured. For the Necron, it is simply continuity maintained, an immutable system balanced, inefficiencies corrected, and outcomes logged. Memory persists without attachment, history unfolds without judgment, and silence itself becomes a statement of power unseen, unemotional, yet undeniable. The galaxy remembers only fragments, glimmers of energy, the faint traces of vanished lives, and the lingering sense that something ancient and eternal has observed all, weighed all, and moved on. And so, across the stars, the Necron dynasties endure. Tomb worlds may awaken again, patterns of calculation may extend to new stars, and mortals may continue to misinterpret, fear, and speculate. Yet in the vast expanse of space and time, the Necron gaze is a constant, impartial presence. It does not judge, it does not celebrate, it simply observes, records, and corrects. Its resonance lingers in absence, a reminder of the meticulous, eternal perspective of a civilization that has transcended mortality and emotion alike. In the end, the story is not of good or evil, of heroism or terror. It is of permanence, of memory, and of the quiet certainty that all existence, fleeting though it may be to mortals, is accounted for. The stars continue to burn, civilizations continue to rise and fall, and yet somewhere in the cold architecture of tomb worlds, the patient, unfeeling gaze persists, eternal, unbroken, and absolute. Silence is not emptiness, it's the final testament to what has been observed, measured, and remembered beyond comprehension. Even after the last echoes of mortals have faded into the void, the Necron tomb worlds remain vigilant, their consciousness stretching across eons and light years with unbroken focus. For them, time is not a succession of moments, but a continuum of observation, calculation, and correction. Every event, from the rise of empires to the flicker of a single life, is folded into the infinite ledger of their memory, catalogued with meticulous precision. This is not history in the human sense, nor narrative shaped by heroism or tragedy. It is an enduring record of reality as it exists, unfiltered by emotion or bias, preserved within metal minds that have transcended the limitations of flesh. In the silence of dormant crypts, the faint hum of machinery is the heartbeat of eternity. Massive monoliths, pyramids, and obelisks lie in wait. Their surfaces etched with glyphs older than most human stars. Each symbol a node of calculation, each lattice a conduit of observation. Constructs, once inert, shift imperceptibly as the tomb world awakens to the subtle rhythms of energy flux. They do not move for conquest, nor for curiosity. They move because continuity demands at every adjustment a correction, every shift a refinement in the system that has endured through millennia. Mortals, if they observe at all, perceive only the barest hints of this intricate choreography, a shadow gliding across a plaza, a glint of emerald light reflecting in the depths of an obelisk, an inexplicable alignment of forces that defies comprehension. The Necrons' perception is infinite, yet their methodology is elegant in its simplicity. Life, energy, and motion are variables. Inefficiency is an anomaly to be corrected. When mortals enter their domains, they are not enemies. Nor are they victims in a narrative sense. They are data points, temporary fluctuations in a vast and unyielding algorithm. Every hesitation, every instinctual choice, every burst of fear or awe is observed, logged, and integrated. In this way, even the fleeting existence of a human is eternalized within the Necron ledger. Though flesh decays and thought ceases, the trace of their presence is preserved as an inefficiency noted and, eventually, resolved. Across tomb worlds, dynastic hierarchs coordinate in a network of cognition that spans systems. ThoughtLink allows instant communication, the sharing of observational data, and the prediction of outcomes with near-perfect accuracy. These decisions are not made out of ambition or emotion, they are pure logic, derived from patterns that have persisted for millennia. The awakening of a tomb world is never an isolated event. It is the culmination of calculations, the extension of influence, and the alignment of countless variables toward the inevitability of order. Mortals who encounter these forces often interpret them as godlike foresight or miraculous strategy, unaware that what they witness is the patient, impersonal orchestration of a race that has transcended need, desire, and fear. Energy flows through tomb worlds as if guided by a silent hand. Residual traces of life, of civilization, of thought, ripple through the construct's perception, highlighting inefficiencies and anomalies. Entire planets become laboratories of inevitability, where mortals struggle unknowingly against the immutable logic of a system older than the stars themselves. What is annihilation to mortals is equilibrium to the Necrons. What is terror is calculation. What is legend is data. The unbroken ledger ensures that nothing escapes observation, that every outcome is preserved and accounted for, and that the pattern of existence, as interpreted through machine logic, is complete and coherent within the infinite ledger. Even the most catastrophic events are reduced to variables. Civilizations collapse, fleets are destroyed, and ecosystems vanish. Yet each occurrence is merely data folded into the broader matrix. Individual lives flicker like sparks against the vast darkness of eternity, and while the human mind may see tragedy or injustice, the Necron mind sees only inefficiency corrected, the balance of the system maintained. The ledger is impartial, unfeeling, and unerring, a monument not of morality, but of observation, a record that stretches without end, capturing reality in its rawest, most unadulterated form. Yet the scope of this ledger is not purely mechanical. There is a rhythm to the observation, a cadence to the calculations that reflects the continuity of life and death across the galaxy. Patterns emerge over centuries, revealing repetition, deviation, and adaptation. To mortals, these patterns may seem mystical or divinely inspired, yet they are born from pure logic and observation. The Necron constructs, in recording and correcting inefficiencies, reveal an unintended poetry. The universe unfolds in measures of cause and effect, structured with a precision that humans can feel but never fully comprehend. Each tomb world, each dynastic hierarchy, contributes to this cosmic symphony, ensuring that the ledger remains complete, seamless, and eternal. Mortals occasionally glimpse fragments of this system and misinterpret them through fear, or the lens of religious superstition. A flaring obelisk is called a portent, a construct's precise maneuver, divine strategy, a sudden disappearance, a curse. In truth, these are the echoes of calculation, the visible consequences of algorithms older than human memory. And yet, in their misinterpretation, mortals continue to participate in the ledger, their perceptions folded into the narrative of observation, their reactions themselves catalogued as variables, inefficiencies, and outcomes to be recorded. The Necron ledger extends beyond the individual or even the tomb world. It encompasses entire systems, sectors, and the vast interstellar distances that mortals can barely imagine. Every star, every planet, every pulse of energy is a data point. Time for the Necrons is both expansive and instantaneous, allowing the integration of outcomes across eons. The ledger is unbroken, continuous, and infinite, a testament not to ambition, conquest, or morality, but to the perfection of observation, the inevitability of calculation, and the enduring resonance of a race that has transcended life itself. And so, in the quiet aftermath of awareness, tomb worlds return to their patience. Monoliths stand sentinel, constructs resume their dormant postures, and the galaxy continues unaware of the ledger that stretches across its span. Mortals may never know the full scope, nor perceive the systems that record, measure, and correct every flicker of existence. Yet the imprint of their brief lives persists, encoded within a memory that will endure long after stars have burned out. Civilizations have fallen, and consciousness itself has vanished. In this way, the Necrons achieve what mortals cannot even imagine, a permanence beyond life, beyond death, and beyond understanding, silent testament to the infinite ledger of eternity. As the tomb worlds settle back into their timeless slumber, the galaxy remains unaware of the precise, unyielding gaze that measures every flicker of life, every spark of energy, and every moment of inefficiency. Mortals continue their fragile existences, their stories written, erased, and remembered only within the infinite ledger of the Necron dynasties. There is no hero, no villain, only the quiet inevitability of observation, calculation, and correction, echoing across stars and centuries alike. The Necrons do not act out of malice or curiosity. They act because the universe, in its perfection, demands it. And yet, even in this unfeeling eternity, there is a strange resonance. Mortals feel it in shadows, in whispered legends, in the chill that runs down the spine when a presence goes unseen. Every encounter, every erasure, every fragment of observation persists in memory, in data, in the silence that stretches across time. It is a reminder that some forces, ancient and eternal, cannot be comprehended, only observed, feared, or marveled at from afar. If this journey into the Necron perspective captured your imagination, make sure to leave a like, share this exploration with others who love the depths of Warhammer 40K, and subscribe for more cinematic dives into the galaxy's most enigmatic forces. And in the comments, tell us if you stood on a tomb world. Would you feel awe, fear, or the weight of inevitability pressing down upon you? The stars continue to burn, civilizations rise and fall, and the silent, eternal gaze of the Necrons endures. For those who study them, remember this: nothing is wasted, nothing is forgotten, and in the vast ledger of eternity, every life, every thought, every fleeting moment is recorded, accounted for, and remembered forever. If you want, I can also make a super short like, comment, subscribe version that fits neatly at the very end of your YouTube video without breaking immersion. Perfect for AI voiceover. Do you want me to do that?